Oracle is a DBMS. So DBMS means database management system. So database, in the sense, it is a memory area which can be accessed by database management system. Okay, so database is a memory area which can accessed by only DBMS but not any other application. Okay, so as Oracle we have several DBMSs, like we have MySQL, SQL Server, DB2. So like this we have several DBMSs. In that, Oracle is a popular one. So in Oracle we have the latest version, that is 12c. Okay, so according to Oracle, DBMS is a software which can be able to manage the data. So data management in the sense, we have two things. The major things are, so reading the data and writing the data. Okay, read and write operations. So read and write operations are nothing but data management. So in write operations we can go for three things, that is modification, deletion and creation. Okay, so if you are creating any new data, so that is also a writing data to a DB, that is database. And if you are deleting any data, if you are deleting any unwanted data, that is also a writing to DB. And if you are changing any data, like already you have some data and you are going to change the values, then that is called modification, that is also come under writing. Okay, so writing in the sense, if you are change the database values or if you are changing the database structure, so that is come under writing the database. And reading the database means just you are reading the data from the database. Okay, now before DBMS we are having something called FMS. So this FMS is nothing but file management system, which is used now also, but the drawback with file management system is its structure. Okay, so in file management system what happens is, whatever the database operations, whatever the data management operations we are doing in file management system, they are done directly on memory, that is main memory, or we can say it is hard disk. Okay, so when we are reading some data, means the file management system is a software which is going to access hard disk, and the hard disk is going to give the data to file management system. Okay, and whenever you are writing the data, like that may be modification, deletion or creation. Okay, when you are writing the data, then those operations are directly done on hard disk. Okay, so number of input and output operations are more, so hard disk is involving much in all the reading and writing operations. So after some years, that may be after 2 years or 5 years, the hard disk performance may degrade. So performance degradation in the sense, the access that are providing by the hard disk may be decreased, or the speed of accessing or the speed of operation on the hard disk may be degraded. Okay, so to avoid this performance degradation, we will be going for DBMS. So in DBMS what happens is, whenever the data is accessed from hard disk, the data is stored in RAM, that is random access memory, that is stored in RAM. So whatever the operations you are doing, that may be the second time or third time reading or fourth time reading, or any writing operations like modification, deletion, creation, so these operations are done in RAM only. Okay, and whatever the modification, whatever the changes you are doing to the data, so those changes are stored, are saved in RAM only. So whenever all the operations are completed, whenever your operations are completed, then the last final data is saved into hard disk by committing the data. Okay, so this type of operations, this type of data management is very helpful in avoiding the degradation of memory. Okay, so this is some kind of memory management also. Okay, so we can say DBMS is not only a database management system, we can take it as a good memory management system. Okay, fine. Next is in Oracle, not only in Oracle, in any database management system. So what happens is the database is classified into so many users. Database is classified into so many users. So let us say we have so many users, user 1, user 2, user 3, so on. Okay, so these users, in these users we will be having so many objects. Let us say object 1, object 3, object 4, like that, so on. In these objects we will be having data. So there is a user application, which is going to interact with the DBMS, in turn the interaction is done by the DBMS to database. So database is a memory area where it is going to store data in this hierarchy. So this is the main hierarchy that is followed by DBMS. So the accessibility of data is limited here. Accessibility of data is limited in the sense, so in the user application we will be declare that I want data from which user and the data is available in which object. Okay, so according to that request that is given from user application, the DBMS is going to ask database. DBMS is going to access the database through that user and that object. Okay, so this data is accessed, only that object data is accessed by the DBMS in database. Okay, so this data is accessed by DBMS and the same data is again retrieved by the user in user application. Okay, so all other objects which are inactive objects are not participating in database operations. Okay, so inactive objects are not participating in database operations means, so the amount of data that is participating in data management is less. So the access or the speed of access is going to increase, and the speed of access is going to increase in RAM. Okay, so every time it is not going to interact with the hard disk, so from RAM only the data management is going on. So it is still better to use DBMS in this manner. Okay, so in Oracle we will be having this structure. Okay, and when we are using this Oracle, so other benefit is every time we are not going to interact with hard disk, so the hard disk memory management is not degraded and the performance is increased, the access performance is increased and memory performance is increased using this DBMS. So this Oracle is known as some good memory management software. Okay, and here already I said that there are many database management operations. Let us say that is read and write operations. Okay, so in this read and write operations are divided into so many sub languages. Okay, and these languages are come under an interactive language with the DBMS that is called SQL. SQL is a language which is going to be used by a user application to interact with the DBMS. SQL in the sense it is structured query language. Structured query language. So these queries, query means question. So ask question, get the answer. So ask and get policy is maintained here between user application and DBMS. Okay, so DBMS can understand this SQL, and user application will be asking the questions or asking for the data in SQL, that is structured query language. In this structured query language is going to do the operations that are already told, that is read and write operations. So these read and write operations are again divided into so many other sub languages, that is data definition language, DML, data manipulation language, DCL, data control language, and TCL, transaction control language, and the last is DQL or DRL. So we can say data query language or data retrieval language. It is data query language. Okay, so these are all 5 different sub languages in SQL. So DDL, data definition language, which deals with the structure of the database. So structure of the database means, so structure of the objects and structure of the data holders, and structure of the objects. Okay, DML means data manipulation language. It deals with the data inside the object. Okay, DCL, so it controls data access. And TCL is a transaction control language. Transaction in the sense, any DML operation is nothing but a transaction. So DML operations, will be dealing with DML operations in the next session. So TCL means any DML operation is a transaction. If you want to control that transaction, then we will be using TCL, transaction control language. This is nothing but, you can say it will control the operation that is done by the DBMS, or it can control the operation that is done on database, that is done on some object. DQL, so data query language, to retrieve the data. So I said reading, so for reading the data or retrieve the data or ask the data, so we will be using DQL. Okay, so now we will be learning what are the commands we have, what are the queries we have in different sub languages of SQL. So before going to that, we will be classifying the types of objects here. So objects are classified here into 2 types. One is a physical object and a logical object. Physical object and a logical object. Physical object is one which takes memory. When you create an object, it will take a memory. Okay, so let us say the major objects that are under physical objects are table, sequence. So these are from SQL. Okay, and function, procedure, trigger, and cursor. So these are all from PLSQL. PLSQL is a programming level structured query language. Programming level structured query language in the sense, so same database operations, same data management operations you will do by programs. Okay, so programming level structured query language is done after SQL. When we complete SQL, we will be going to programming level structured query language. Okay, so these are all some physical objects. And logical objects, we have something called view, synonym, index. So these are all some logical objects in SQL. And So these logical objects will not take any memory, so it will link to a physical object. Okay, so any logical object will take a link to a physical object to get the data from a physical object. Okay, so this is object which is not going to take any memory. Okay, so if you create this object, you are not going to allocate any memory. Here memory allocation is done. Memory allocation is done here. Here memory allocation is not done. Okay, so these are all types of objects we will be learning in SQL. And other side we have types of users. Okay, so types of users, there are two types of users. One is a DBA user, another is a normal user. A DBA user and another is normal user. A user is a account. User is a database account which holds these objects. User is a database account which holds this object. Account means usually we know that any account, that may be Gmail account or any Facebook account, you will be having some username and password. Okay, so here for user also we will be having username and password. Okay, so when you install Oracle, so you will be asking some password. Okay, so that password is given to all the by default users, and you can create your own user. Okay, that is done by DBA only. Only DBA can create any other user. Okay, so normal user cannot create any user. So DBA has all authorized permissions on any user. DBA has all authorized permissions. He can access any user, he can access objects of any user, he can access the passwords and he can change the password, he can modify the data in the objects of any user. So all the operations are done by DBA in any user. So here let us say for a fundamental purpose we will be learning Oracle 11G here. Okay, so in 11G we will be having a DBA that is called system. System is a DBA. Okay, and there are so many normal users. Okay, so system is a user which can create another user. System is a user which can handle all other users. System is a user which can deal with the data of any other user. Okay, so he has all the permissions to access in all the objects of all the users. Okay, so when you are installing Oracle, at the time of installation, the password is asked at the time of installation. So you will be giving some password, your own password you can give. That password will be allocated for DBA and some of the default normal users. So when you install the Oracle, you will be getting a default users, the default normal users. So for DBA and those default normal users, the same password is allocated. Okay, and then so if you want to create any user, so system can create the user here. So I will be giving a query to create the user. So this is called DBA activity. So this is a fundamental activity of any DBA. So you will be having something like that: create user, some username identified by some password. Okay, create username identified by some password. A new user is created by this command. Okay, so this command you have to give by opening the system user. System is a DBA. So whatever the DBA you are having in your database, that user can create another user like this. Okay, so after creating this, the normal user is created, and this normal user, we cannot connect to this normal user right now. So what you have to do is you need to go for grant, connect and resource. Grant, connect and resource to whatever that user, newly created user name is there. To that username you grant these two permissions from system user. Okay, so let us say I want to connect to system. So when you are connecting to any user, just you use some command, that is connect username / password. Okay, so here username is system and password is something whatever you have given at the time of installation. At the time of installation, whatever the password is given, that password is to be given here, and system is a DBA. So whenever you are giving the connect system / whatever the password you have given, so it is connected to the system user. So system is a DBA, so it can create any other user. Okay, it can create any default normal user, or it can create any new normal user. Okay, so that we will be doing with that query. Let us say I want to create a user, something called DURGASOFT. DURGASOFT is a user I want to create. Okay, so create user DURGASOFT. Okay, and identified by is a keyword. So it is given to assign any password. Okay, to identified by something called, I will be giving a password, let us say HYD123. Okay, HYD123 is a password that is given to the user DURGASOFT. Okay, now the system has created this user like this, create user DURGASOFT identified by some password. Okay, so you can connect to this user now. So this is a new user, DURGASOFT is a new user, so you can connect to this user after giving the permissions to connect. So only system can give the permissions to the new user to connect to the database and get the resources from database. Resources in the sense, so we will be having so many resources like memory is a resource, and queries are some resources. Okay, so queries are developed by the database management system for a user. Okay, so all the queries are accessed by the user if you give the resource permission. So resource permission in the sense, so you are giving some memory and giving some access to the queries. So now I will be giving those permissions here. Grant, connect and resource to your username is DURGASOFT. So grant, connect, resource to DURGASOFT. So when you grant these permissions, now you can connect. Now you can connect with the new user, that is DURGASOFT. Okay, so just now you write connect username is DURGASOFT and / password is HYD123. Okay, now so you will be getting a message that is connected. Okay, so this is how the DBA works. So this is a very basic DBA activity that we will be doing at the time of starting the session. Okay, so when you are going to write any query, so first you need a user, because you can create an object in user only. So for that purpose I have created a user here, that is DURGASOFT. So that user can be created by only system, because system is a DBA, that is database administrator. He is the head of all the users, and he has all the access to the users, that may be default users or any new user that are created by his DBA, and he has all the access to the objects that are created in the users also. So we have created the user like this, and we have given some permission, that is to connect to the database and to connect to get the resources like memory and queries. Okay, those permissions are given to the new user, that is DURGASOFT. Okay, now you can work with the user DURGASOFT.